So my name is Anna Maria Beylunioğlu. I am a political scientist, and I'm currently teaching at Koç and also MEF University in Istanbul, but mainly I'm at Koç. My primary research focuses on religious freedom in Turkey, particularly the experiences of religious minorities. And my academic interest also expanded recently on food, politics, and society, especially after I pursued professional culinary arts education training and became a professional cook as well. But I continue to teach on religion and politics here in Istanbul. And in my master's research, I focused on recently removed, but still there's, I believe it has an effect in our lives still, religion section on identity cards in Turkey. And in my PhD research, doctoral thesis, I examined the concept of religious freedom with a specific focus on Turkish Christians. I myself, one of the Turkish Christian minorities in Turkey. And my research argued that at that time, I was graduated in 2017, actually. I argued that Turkish Christians have endured similar forms of trauma across two distinct political eras. I mean, the secular system established by the founder of the Republic, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, and the current governance under the Justice and Development Party. So today I will try to discuss how these two periods, these two eras have influenced the experiences of Turkish Christians, and, of course, the complex nature of their struggles. So let me start with saying that, the rights of religious individuals and communities has been a sensitive issue in Turkey since the founding of the Republic of Turkey. I will keep saying Turkey. I'm so sorry because the name of the country changed very recently. I don't think I will ever get used to it. So when I say Turkey, understand it as Türkiye, because the official name right now is Türkiye. So following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, basically Turkey embraced a new state ideology that is Kemalism. Let me, if I can, of course. Here. Kemalism. It is. It's the principle of basically, in Kemalism, you can see different important parts of Kemalism here, but I will focus on secularism since we will be talking about freedom of religion today. So because the principle of secularism occupied a principal position in this ideology. While this principle aimed at separating religion and state, its aim in the Turkish context had devastating impact on religious minorities. On the one hand, the strong emphasis on secularism in the constitution placed extreme limitations on the activities of religious individuals and groups, of course. On the other hand, the creation and promotion of controlled version of Sunni Islam resulted in unequal treatment of religious faiths, then excluded from the official state religion. I will try to explain them all. And in fact, legally, there is no state religion in Turkey. Still, we don't have state religion in Turkey, but you will see over some examples today that there is such a thing in practice. So over the decades, the state-led policy has therefore disadvantaged some religious individuals and groups, such as Islamists, Alawites, and and non-Muslims, of course, and Christians. So to understand the case of, we will focus on the case of Christians today, but to understand this, I think it is important to talk about limits of freedom of religion in Turkey under the Kemalist, I mean, the founding mindset. So the sensitive issue of the protection of religious minorities and the debate over the boundaries of religious freedom in Turkey date back to Kemalist revolution. The revolution aimed to create a new republic, from the ashes of the Ottoman Empire, and this Kemalism as a state ideology developed by the founder of the republic, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, aimed to decrease the influence exercised by Islam during the Ottoman era by introducing secularism. I say secularism, but in Turkish we call it laïcité, laiklik, like in the French version. It is one of the main pillars of Kemalism, but it failed to completely separate affairs of religion and state by deciding to assert the superiority of Islam, at least in practice, over other religions. So the Kemalist formulation of secularism, it is very paradoxical, you will see. It fell short in formulating a regulatory system responding to the demands of Turkey's diverse population, particularly in regards to the individual right to freely choose and practice one's religion. So the controversial approach to Kemalism towards religion can only be, I think, understood with a comprehensive view of the developments in respect to the role of religion in the late Ottoman Empire, and to grasp a comprehensive view, comprehensive understanding of the Ottoman Empire, we can say that probably, the audience know here, but, to set the comprehensive, picture here, I have to say that in Ottoman Empire, Islam was dominant, and religious freedom, in a way, was limited and controlled. But the Ottomans controlled a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multilingual, public. So in this system, they considered non-Muslims as second-class subjects of the empire and grouped them under millet system. So millet system, let me see if I have a slide for that. It will be coming in a minute. So this millet system, millet means nation in Turkish, but it has nothing to do with national identity here, because in the Ottoman Empire, it was referring mostly ethno-religious identities, predominantly religious identities. So each group or millet was allowed to govern their religious affairs independently. So religion was basically the defining element of the millet system. And within the system, the population of the empire was composed of different communities in terms of their religion rather than ethnic identity. And these communities operated fairly autonomously in their daily lives. And they were managed by religious institutions like patriarchates, like the chief rabbinate, and they also represented, they also represented them politically in dealings with the Ottoman authorities. So this loose, in a way, pragmatic system was in place from the time of the Mehmet II, the conqueror, who conquered the long-time Ottoman capital Constantinople, and now we call it Istanbul. And as famously explained by Turkish scholar Baskın Orhan, under this system, the Ottoman population was classified into two categories. Muslims were the dominant nation, milleti mahkume in Ottoman, while the rest were relegated to the role of subordinate nations, milleti mahkume. Although this system basically provided the non-Muslim communities with an autonomy, allowing them to organize their internal religious and educational affairs, it's in a way reinforced inequality. From today's eyes, we can call it an unequal system across these religious groups. Indeed, Islam had a greater impact in the Ottoman Empire on political decision-making processes when compared to the influence of other groups. And this system established the superiority of the office of Sheikhul Islam. Wait, I'm trying to, oh, sorry. Sheikhul Islam, sorry, technical issues here. So Sheikhul Islam was an Islamic, basically, it's an Islamic institution. This Islamic institution was superior over the representatives of other religious communities. So, sorry, I don't know why this is happening, distracting me. So, moreover, the Sheikhul Islam was more than a representative of Islamic communities, and it was also a political actor, leading the community through its release of the fatwa approving and legitimizing the laws issued by the Sultan. But by the late 19th century, a shift started to happen in the Ottoman Empire. The superior role of the role once occupied by Islam was undermined. I mean, there was local nationalisms, especially from the groups like Serbians and Greeks. They challenged the empire's authority, and this led to reforms called Tanzimat, which granted some new rights to non-Muslims. But true equality for minorities was still lacking. Of course, we cannot call the Tanzimat period, we cannot refer to it as, the non-Muslims having full equality. It was basically lacking in this period. The power of the religious leaders, especially Shaykhul Islam, began to decline in the this is the previous this happened in the Republican term, sorry. Power of the religious leaders, especially as we refer to Shaykhul Islam, it began to decline as reforms introduced the concept of representation for non-Muslims in the parliament. Of course, this didn't happen quickly, because the Sultan Abdulhamid II briefly closed the parliament and pursued a pan-Islamist policy. But then the Committee of Union and Progress brought back the parliament in 1908, continuing the secularization process. But of course, the Union and Progress couldn't stop the empire's decline, especially after aligning with the central powers of the First World War, further weakening of the Ottoman Empire. And after the First World War, Ottoman Empire, as you know, dissolved, leading to a creation of the Republic of Turkey in 1923, and there were modernization and secularization efforts began. In the it started in the late Ottoman Empire and continued with Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, with Mustafa Kemal Atatürk's leadership. And Atatürk's goal, and the founder of the Republic's goal, was to make Turkey as advanced as other nations. So the new republic was established as a secular and social states. Now you will see some of the reforms introduced here on the slides. So to achieve this, to be a secular and social state, the government basically separated religion from public life, and the office of Shaykhul Islam and Caliphate were abolished, and religious brotherhoods were banned from public, and even in private sphere. They went underground basically, and they basically the promotion of the religious ideals and ideas for political gain in this era was prohibited, and people openly displaying religious devotion were socially and politically marginalized. Not only, Muslims, but also Christians. They were marginalized. For example, the most remarkable change in this era was to change call of prayer from Arabic to Turkish, and religious schools, of course, that were training Muslim clergy were actually shut down. And in 1928, references to religion were removed from the constitution, and the principle of secularism came much later in 1937 with 1937 amendments. And these changes and many others, of course, aim to limit religion to private life. Even, some say that, they wanted to remove religion even from the private life. But I have to say that these, of course, mentality here that was trying to be established with the Kemalist project was seen as an elitist project and implemented basically top down. And therefore, it has been associated with authoritarian characteristics. And it didn't basically tolerate the articulation of different identities and lifestyles in public sphere, since they were believed to undermine Kemalist vision of an ideal society. Because, for this ideal society, in this ideal society, for the Kemalist, religion didn't have any place. Therefore, secularism became the most essential, but at the same time, the most controversial pillar of Kemalism. And, defined as separation of state and religious affairs, this principle's target was to remove religion, from educational, sorry for the cat, sorry, from educational, from cultural, and from even legal spheres. But perceiving organized religion as, in a way, anachronistic, Kemalism basically adopted, as it is stated in the literature. Some say that it was a militant version of secularism that could even be defined as hostility to religion. So through this principle, Kemalism basically intended to reduce the role of religion and in all spheres of the society, including, some say that it wasn't targeting private sphere, but most examples show us that it was also targeting to remove religion from the private sphere. In addition to excluding religion from public discourse, some say that Kemalism also became the official dogma of irreligion. So therefore, the traditional Islamic features and non-Muslim faiths were excluded from public sphere. And during the first decades of the Republic, there was an observable decline in the worship and celebration of religious days. This wasn't welcomed in this era, even for the non-Muslims. And these steps taken by the Kemalist regime to pursue this strict or militant version of secularism, secularist approach that would leave no room for any religious activity, considerably restricting religious freedoms of those who followed the religious beliefs that were not supported by the state. So then comes the, paradoxical side of Turkish secularism, which is, I believe, very important to understand, what was experienced by Turkish Christians since the founding of the Republic. So to be honest, Kemalist policies aiming to displace religion from its former position in both political and social spheres is in line with the concept of secularization, the French model, we may say, but the oh, sorry, but the but the in the literature, you can see many examples that Kemalism is actually trying to keep religion not only under control, but it was also trying to, promote or, prioritize, one denomination over others. So this was very paradoxical. So they basically replaced what they did. They replaced Shaykhul Islam after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. We said that, Shaykhul Islam and the Caliphate were abolished, but they replaced the office of Shaykhul Islam with the presidency of the religious affairs. And this office placed in charge of religious affairs in the new republic. But instead of representing religious diversity, because its name doesn't incline any relation to Islam here, so what we would expect is them representing, this institution representing religious diversity remained in Turkey at that time. But instead of representing this religious diversity in the Turkish society within this body, in practice, this state apparatus basically promoted a certain interpretation of Islam and excluded both folk Islam and non-Muslim faiths and established basically a controlled version of, we say Hanafi and Sunni denomination within Islam as the predominant religion of the new nation. Despite the legal framework, of course, because in the Constitution we have such articles, basically securing equality before the law, regardless of one's language, race, religion, and sect, etc. And there is another one securing the right to freedom of conscience, religious belief, and conviction, as well as free exercise of worship, religious services, and ceremonies for all. Despite these articles in the Constitution, individuals belonging to a certain religious group, such as if you are an extreme Islamist or Alawite or non-Muslim, these groups were excluded basically from the from the agenda of the presidency of religious affairs, which replaced Shaykhul Islam institution in the Ottoman Empire. So therefore, these groups we will see they were also subjected to discrimination. So this form of secularism, in a way, where the state basically controlled and limited religious activities, led to a conflict between secularists and Islamists. This also encouraged the political involvement of Islam in the following years. The first opposition appeared in 1924 with the Progressive Republican Party, which disagreed with the Kemalist centralist and authoritarian and top-down, ways. But this opposition didn't challenge the secular policies much. There were, of course, we can talk about certain rebellions in early republic. Okay, yeah, I have to explain this. This is, yeah, in the beginning, from the very beginning of the republic, according to I referred to him earlier, Baskın Orhan, Turkish scholar, basically being a Turkish citizen meant to be secular, Hanafi, Sunni, Muslim Turk. In Turkish, we call it laik Hanefi, Sünni Müslüman Türk, Laha Sümüt. Uh, so 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 this was the, approved citizens of the republic, basically. But of course there was, opposition from different parts of Anatolia, and these are some pictures from Sheikh Said and Menemen uprisings, two different uprisings, one in 1925 and one 1930s. Of course, some you can also perceive, for example, Sheikh Said's rebellion as an ethnic uprising, but it also, since Sheikh Said was a religious character, it was also a religious uprising, and Islamist groups and different Islamic beliefs stayed basically underground until the introduction of multi-party system. And it is very interesting. I mean, during the multi-party system in 1950s, with the introduction of this system, a part of the opposition in Turkey formed a movement described as pro-American, pro-capitalist, right-wing, and it also included Turkish Islamic Identity, Democrat Party, and its successor, the Justice Party. They established the center-right tradition, and they aim to appeal to religious voters, including non-Muslim minorities, through a conservative approach, making changes such as allowing the call of prayer back in Arabic and lifting bans on religious education and introducing Quranic courses that later became Imam Hatip schools, religious schools. They still exist in Turkey. And despite these efforts to promote moderate Islam, radical Islamist groups were still suppressed during the time. So I don't want to, since I have only 45 minutes, I also want to talk about the current situation in Turkey. But let me say that this line continued, in the 1970s with the rise of political Islam in Turkey. There were these series of parties with Islamic leanings, but of course they were shut down, closed down after military coups or after court cases that found the aim of these parties against the Kemalist ideal. But there, it was very, despite these attempts to blend in a way, Turkish nationalism with Islam, especially after 1980s, and despite the existence of these parties, expressing Islam in public was discouraged, and even banned, actually. This was basically conflicting with the Kemalist secularism, and people openly displaying their Islamic beliefs, such as wearing an Islamic attire or growing a beard. They faced suspensions if they were in public institutions or in universities. But of course, at the same time, Christians were also experiencing similar traumas. They couldn't wear a priest couldn't wear a religious attire in public, and etc. And by basically excluding religion from public debate and suppressing the demands of religious groups in the name of secularism in the early republic, Kemalism basically contradicted with its own ideal. Allowing certain interpretations of Islam over others didn't basically support true religious freedom. And traditional Islamists, these are the three main groups, but there were, of course, many other people and groups affected. Alawites, non-Muslims, they were all affected from the system. And since the founding of Turkey, these groups have criticized these founding secular regime for not providing a legal way to practice their religion freely. So this lack of regulation had especially severe consequences for non-Muslims. I mean, it also had effects on Alawites. I won't get into detail, but they share the same grounds. Although some supported, for example, Alawites supported Atatürk. As you can see, this is a picture from a cemevi, their religious um, institution. You can see the pictures of Atatürk. So in a way to show their support and support to the founder of the republic. But of course, they were also criticizing the republic. These two pictures are from, I think, Koçgiri and Dersim rebellions. These are the Alawite uprisings. There were many other events took place, but since we aim to focus on Christian-Muslim relations here, I won't be able to get into this problematic relationship between Alawites and Sunnis and the secular camp in Turkey. Actually, we can argue that non-Muslims are, as I said earlier, they were the non-Muslim groups have been the more disadvantaged than others. I mean, they have suffered from a series of discriminatory policies as well as assaults, which together have led to a gradual decrease in their representation among the general population. I mean, from 25% of Turkey's total population of Ottoman empires, of course, in 1892 to less than 1% of the population today. It is, I think, remarkable. I mean, so let's focus on what happened to these non-Muslim minorities, after the foundation of the Republic. So, sorry, I couldn't switch. Yeah, okay, I'll talk about certification policies in a minute. So these rights of non-Muslim minorities have been determined by different legal documents, and the most important of these documents is the Treaty of Lausanne, signed in 1923, because in addition to the articles in the Constitution ensuring the equality regardless of religion and guaranteeing freedom of religion, this Treaty of Lausanne, signed in 1923, right after the First World War, secured important rights for non-Muslims. But at this point, I think it is important to talk about a few important misconceptions held and promoted by the Turkish state, Turkish authorities, in order to have a comprehensive, understanding of Muslim-Christian relations of today. The first misconception, actually, it's a widespread misconception held by the Turkish authorities. We generally, and the state generally, in their discourse, they promote this. They say that there are three religious minorities in Turkey. Armenian Orthodox, Rum Orthodox. By Rum, I mean there's a difference between Greek and Rum, but Roman Orthodox, let's say, and Jews. So they perceive these three communities as minorities, but actually, official records of the non-Muslim population have not been maintained since 1970s, because the question about religious affiliation at that time became unnecessary due to the 99.2% of the population identified themselves as Muslims in 1970s. But recent reports indicate that the non-Muslim community in Turkey is actually diverse, including Armenian Orthodox Christians, Latin Catholics, Jews, Syriac Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Baha'is, Yazidis, Jehovah's Witnesses, Protestants, Chalcedons, Greek or Roman Orthodox, What else? Additionally, there are also smaller groups like Melkite Catholics or Armenian Protestants, Armenian Catholics, Bulgarian Orthodox, Arab Orthodox. They are also considered as Greek Orthodox. I am one of the Arab Orthodox minority in Turkey. Nestorians, Syriac Catholics, Maronites, although their populations cannot be precisely estimated because you know the state doesn't count them since 1970s. So this is one misconception. I mean, people and the state, I mean, because the state promotes it to the people, they believe that there is only three type of non-Muslims in Turkey: Jews, Armenians, and the Roman Orthodox. But there are actually, wide, diverse range of non-Muslim minorities in Turkey. And the other misconception, actually, contrary to the other misconceptions, the rights outlined in the Lausanne Treaty are not limited to Armenian Orthodox or Roman Orthodox and the Jews. Whether viewed as a minority rights document or as a part of contemporary understanding of religious freedoms, it is, I think, fair to say that Turkish state has not interpreted the Treaty of Lausanne, the founding treaty of Turkey, by the way, as a human rights document. I mean, instead, the state has significantly limited its scope. They basically, provided those rights, for the non-Muslim minorities only for Armenian Orthodox, Roman Orthodox, and Jews, if they did, of course. So, because the positive rights guaranteed, even for these three minority groups, have been neglected by the state. As a result, basically, non-Muslims in Turkey have faced, since they didn't have a legal, legal guarantee, because the state didn't even implement the Treaty of Lausanne for these three groups. They have faced various challenges, including systematic assaults or extrajudicial practices since the founding of the Republic. And in the light of these misconceptions I just referred to, the violation of the rights, the violation of the religious freedoms among non-Muslims, especially Christians in Turkey, can be understood in two interconnected ways. I mean, the Turkification policies, an extension of Kemalist ideas, amounted for systematic assaults, primarily targeting non-Muslim citizens, and extrajudicial and discriminatory practices. And I will try to refer to some of these policies. By the way, if you, I don't know if you will get the questions afterwards or not, but if you believe that you need to ask a question, I don't know, our moderators could help, I think. You can ask. Yeah. So non-Muslim minorities, basically, this is, I think I have to say in the beginning, you will see in a minute through these Turkification policies and extrajudicial practices. I'll try to summarize in a very brief way, because it's a very long list. If I get into the details of each one of them, today we have to spend our whole evening here. So they were basically, you will see that after reviewing some of them, non-Muslim minorities were seen as a threat to the national project, even before the republic was formed. This led to a series of events where the minorities were not only excluded from public spaces, but also from the definition of Turkish identity. This mindset laid basically the foundation of this Turkification policies, which allowed no room for anyone outside the category of secular, Sunni, Hanefi, Muslim, Turk. So Turkification policies basically aim to complete dominance of the Turkish ethnic identity, because the implementation uh, displayed such a motivation here in every aspect of life, including language, history taught in the schools, education, industry, trade, state personnel administration, and even private law and settlement policies. And these policies were implemented before the started to be implemented before the establishment of the Republic of Turkey. Um, yeah, these two dates, I mean, 1913 to 1922 and 1915, Greek and Turkish, sorry, not Greek, Ottoman Empire, they initiated attacks on the non-Muslim population, starting with the deportations and massacres. Not only, I mean, we know about Armenian massacres, but we don't talk about the Greek massacres, between 1913 and 1922. And this was the early start of this Turkification policies, if I may say. In 1923, the Greek and Turkish governments agreed to a population exchange. This is another aspect of Turkification policies between Muslims in Greece and Roman Orthodox, Greek Orthodox Christians in Turkey. I mean, between 1922 and the end of 1924, 1,200,000 Rum Orthodox were expelled, while 400,000 Muslims from Greece were resettled in Turkey as a part of this policy. After the population exchange, the National Turkish Commercial Union was established in 1923 with the aim of creating a national economy essentially for the Turkification of capital by pushing non-Muslims out of the market. That was the main aim, and they sought to exclude non-Muslim entrepreneurs from the economy. According to the report of British Ambassador Sir Lindsay, that revealed that companies were at that time compelled to employ 75% Muslim Turks in their factories. And that continued with Turkification policies in some of the islands that was given an autonomous status under the Article 14 of the Treaty of Lausanne. Although they had autonomous status, Turkish state implemented resettlement policies in these two islands called Imbros, Gökçeada in Turkish, Imbros in Greek, Tenedos in Greek, and Bozcaada in Turkish. And I'll try to just refer some of these Turkification policies briefly, but if you have questions, we can, I think, continue in the discussion session. Yeah, I think yeah, the law passed in 1932 was also important because it paved the way for unequal treatment of non-Muslim citizens, contradicting again with the Treaty of Lausanne, Article 39 of Treaty of Lausanne. And according to a law, according to this law, that was contradicting with Treaty of Lausanne, non-Muslims had to quit their jobs within 6 months, and consequently, of course, within 2 years of its implementation, we have seen like 15,000 Rum Orthodox minorities were forced to leave their jobs and eventually the country. And this continued with the capital tax in 1942. I mean, the capital tax basically implemented in order to cover the war expenditures. But when we focus on the rates, we quickly see that. I think I had a picture of that in the following slides. Yeah, you can see the numbers here, on my left, upper left. So Armenians got this tax, according to their, welfare. It's also called welfare tax. You can see the percentages here, 232% of their welfare. Jews got 179%. Rum Orthodox got 156, and Muslim Turks got 4.94. As you can see, this actually reveals the main motivation of this capital tax here. Apart from the capital tax, then we had this 1955 pogroms, 6-7 September pogroms, when non-Muslims were targeted again after a false report attack on the Turkish consulate in Greece, in Thessaloniki. The news spread very quickly, and people started to attack to the shops or homes of the non-Muslim minorities in Istanbul. Similar events happened in 1964. In 1964, the tension between Greeks and Turks in Cyprus was affected the Greek settlers in Istanbul, because they were in not in Istanbul, in Turkey. They were in Turkey with a special agreement between the founder of Turkish Republic, Atatürk, and Venizelos, the Greek Republic, in 1930s, and they just decided to expel this agreement upon the events happened in Cyprus. Consequently, 6,000 Greek residents had to leave, Turkey, along with their spouses. I mean, some of them were Greek minorities. They weren't Greek citizens at all. There are many dimensions of this. I don't know how much time I have. Could you help me with that? 5?
So I keep 5 minutes max.
Okay. Okay, then I will fast and I'll try to do my best. So these are the Turkification policies. It goes to till expulsion of Greeks, but there were also extrajudicial practices and discriminatory policies, on non-Muslim minorities, specifically concerning their recognition, their expression, teaching, and practice of their religion. So some of these challenges you can see on the list, but let me show you this. Let me talk about this foreign citizen here for those who don't know this. There were those cases where non-Muslim citizens sought to reclaim their properties, and they faced court decisions, often labeled them as foreign citizens. I mean, it is very interesting statement to call non-Muslim citizens of your country. This notably occurred in 1974, symbolizing an era characterized by such practices. I won't be able to get into details, but I would love to talk about these in the discussion session. Let me move to, what happened after 2002? During the AKP era. Basically, we can talk about the importance of Helsinki summit, because Turkey was accepted as a candidate state to the EU at this summit in 1999, if I'm not wrong. And then Justice and Development Party came in 2002, and we can see that the Justice and Development Party, which has been in power for a significant period, has made substantial progress, sorry, in addressing the exclusion of Islamic groups from the public sphere, some of which also extended to Christian communities. But it is important to note that this progress hasn't always aligned with the principles of democratic system, since assuming power in 2002, the governing party initially garnered support from those advocating for freedom of speech and freedom of religion. So indeed, most of the religious minorities, they voted for the Justice and Development Party in their first two terms. And some confiscated properties were returned under the current government. And certain churches were renovated. This wasn't possible before the Justice and Development Party term. And a new church in Istanbul was built and inaugurated during the Prime Minister's visit. And non-Muslims initially welcomed some of these changes. But of course, today they are now increasingly alarmed by the recent arbitrary developments, raising concerns about the trajectory of religious freedom of the country. So, it is basically, in a nutshell, I can say that even this restitution process of these properties, according to one of my interviewee, it wasn't all lavender and roses. There were many problematic issues there. For example, the restitution of the Syriac Catholic Church failed due to there were lots of bureaucratic challenges. And also, there are those, for example, Christian communities in Antakya, in the south of Turkey, this earthquake region recently, really, it's my hometown, by the way, Hatay, Antakya. We don't have the city anymore, but anyway, at that time they were trying to get recognition for their buildings. But this is a region which joined Turkey in 1939, and Turkish state required a 1936 document from these communities, which they didn't have because they weren't in Turkey at that time. There were many other problems in this process. Even the reopening of the Halki Seminary. Halki Seminary is the theology school shut down by the state in 1971. Every year it is promised to be opened, but never happens. And let me also, I need just 5 more minutes to finish this, if it's okay for everyone. Let me also say that the current landscape also reveals a transformation in the current governing party's approach, because alongside these positive changes, there has been a concerning trend of converting churches, or these were significantly important for non-Muslim communities, and they were trying to convert them into mosques. And this shift was basically characterized by increasing reference to Ottoman Empire as a part of Turkey's deep-rooted past, which they had this special emphasis on tolerance approach. Maybe we can also talk about this, when we talk about Muslim-Christian relations in the discussion session. Basically, they were mostly referring to this tolerant approach towards non-Muslim citizens or subjects during the Ottoman Empire, now citizens. And most strikingly, it has been possible to observe a prioritization of Islam over other religions, which also impacted the reform process with regard to the issues related to non-Muslim minorities negatively. Even the proposal of conversion of Ayasofya Museum into a mosque which resurfaced frequently every year and finally, eventually realized in 2022, following similar conversions of museums in Iznik and Trabzon into mosques earlier, has actually reinforced this perception that AKP has been prioritizing Islam over other religions. There are many examples here, as I noted, but let me finish by let me show this. This is a picture of this recent Syriac church established, I mean, constructed from scratch. So this is basically the first church built in the history of Turkish Republic. I mean, all of the others were, renovated and, owners changed, from Catholic church to Syriac church, but this one was built from scratch. So this is the first church, and for the government, it was they showed it as a success, as a they were supporting freedom of religion in Turkey. But let me end with an interview I made with a senior person from one of the Christian communities in Turkey. He was complaining about this recent election process because the state also interfered in election process of the minority communities, their administration. They have elections for the administration, and they basically intervene in this process, and they didn't allow the Greek Orthodox to have an Istanbul-wide practice during the elections that actually limited their electorate. Basically, it is very detailed process, but there was a very interesting thing here. He says that, we will never know the implications of this political decision, but we have always been forced to live like acrobats within political imbalances. To be honest, we were deeply saddened that day, I mean, that the state decided to intervene in this election process and faced a practice that we didn't deserve. However, there is nothing we can do. This is a continuation of a mentality that has been persisted from the past to present. We also know that we are now prisoners of certain political structures. These developments are happening outside of our capabilities, and we are not given a say. We exercised our right to speak, but we didn't receive a response, and there is nothing we can do now. Thank you for listening.